Dr. Miller, PhD here. Always double up on the credentials because it covers up for my insecurities. Is that okay with you? Is it okay that I do that? Just tell me it's okay. Okay. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Like this video, you're more welcome to look at it. Hopefully it gets better. As always, my videos are off to a rough start. But I'm always sub because we're in this together to get me to 1,000 subs, which of course means you get a Lamborghini. Because it seems like the advertisements are promoting this. Like if I get to 1,000 subs and all your, everything just starts coming together financially for you, and it just takes off. So when I say we're in this together to get to 1,000 subs, I really mean me. But I'll make more videos if that makes you feel better. So it's consolation that I'll keep rambling. And then hit the notification bell and all that good stuff. All right, let's get into this. What is this video about? So one of the things I wanted to hit on is many times when we look at training, we tend to flatten everything. So, we do 5 sets of 8 squat, and I see these in programs, right? And I'm not saying these are wrong. I'm going to add something to it. How's that? 5 sets of 8 squat, 5 sets of 8 overhead press, 5 sets of 8 biceps curl, whatever. And then the next day you do 5 sets of 8 of something else. And the next week you might do 5 sets of 10, or right. I'm just kind of generalities here, but not surprising that people are different and muscles are different. So first of all, people are different in that somebody could really have an overdeveloped anterior chain. It could be developed in the upper body, like a typical bro bencher, right? And I've been a bro bencher, so I understand. Is overdeveloped pecs, anteriorly rotated, anterior delts overly developed, while the upper back is suffering, right? And so you can see it posturally and other things. So that would require a little bit different volume to rebalance. And there's some, like this whole idea of push-pull is a good idea. You can unbalance your imbalances by unbalancing your volume in your program, right? So if you need to build more upper back, then do more upper back than you do pushing, horizontal pushing, okay? And I'm not talking about shoulder care here. That's a little different. That won't necessarily help a shoulder be healthier by itself. It certainly is helpful, but anyway. So I think you get the idea, person to person. But what I'm focusing more on this video is muscle groups and movements are different. For example, like the old German volume training, it's 100 reps of like a compound movement. Well, there's a study that was done. I can't remember when it was done. They did 5x10 versus 10x10, about the same result. So, we get this idea of junk volume, right? Where basically in junk volume, fatigue starts to become so high and the damage so high that recoverability starts to become an issue to the point where you cannot recover fast enough in order to do another good session within a timely manner. Therefore, you're losing volume over time. Plus, the fatigue is so high now, the quality, it's turned into an endurance training session. Like you've pulverized the muscle. Now we're just going to go ahead and pulverize it some more and then drop a bomb on it, right? I mean, there's a point where you have to say, there's no more left. Right, it's not going to recover. If you do a session and then you're able to recover and then do it the same body part 3 days later, that's a lot of volume as compared to one devastating session that takes you 10 days to recover from. You're going to get more out of the lower volume work. So in compound movements, your typical compound movement, squat, dead, bench, overhead pressing, even these are going to be capped, and I would highly recommend not going to failure. But the exercises, though, these single joint exercises, you can take out to some extremes. So an example would be lateral raises. Obviously, there is a limit, and you have to be careful with shoulders. This is where exercise variety can be very helpful. But, you can extend out. I've had clients that train 5 times a week, and they get up to doing 15 sets of lateral raises per week, and that's still, they could do more. Like there's more. Now, with that said, I know what I'm going to say next. It's like, well, I don't have that much time to train. And that's right. There's optimal and there's practical. Like we could say do 1,000 sets of lateral raises, but if you don't have time to do them, then it doesn't matter. So kind of take that for what it's worth and work on as much volume as you can. If lateral raises and your lateral delts are not a big priority for you, then you can keep the volume in maintenance mode. But if you're like, man, I really want to build shoulder width, for whatever reason, whether that's physique, whether that's you want to build a suit of armor because you're an athlete that falls down a lot, right? Those type of things, then this might be an interest to you, and you have the time to do it, and then make it a focus. Okay, I'm just using lateral delts as an example, but what I'm really getting at is there are body regions that don't have to follow these general rules about when we say, okay, 2 to fail, 1 to fail, no more than 5 sets of an exercise, etc. Okay, we can go beyond that. So, some of these muscle groups are, like I mentioned, sorry for the being in there, lateral raises, post-delt work, biceps. Triceps is a little tricky, just because biceps brachii, by the way, not triceps, biceps femoris, but is a little bit tricky. And the reason is that because of the nature of the triceps, it puts a lot of stress on the elbow to do some of your conventional like cable push downs and your skull crushers and triceps reach rollbacks and things like that. They can be a little bit hard on the elbows, but you can still do tricep work to failure finishers with like diamond push-ups, right? Using the barbell, set barbell push-ups, basically a close grip push-up of some sort. You could do something like close grip bench, but again, you're starting to get more compound movement there and you start to create more fatigue as a result. So I would limit that one not to go to failure very much, more so like the push-ups type of work, maybe kickbacks, but again, being very cognizant of the elbow with something like the triceps. So I'm just trying to give you like a lay of the land here. Something like triceps, even though I'm saying single joint exercise can be taken to failure a little bit more, it may not be a good idea. Now, hypothetically, a leg extension machine is a single joint exercise. Okay, now there's a muscle there, just like the biceps brachii, that's a 2-joint muscle, but that's a bigger muscle group, right? And so exhausting that muscle, the quadriceps with a leg extension machine, is going to be a little bit more of a fatigue issue than if you do your lateral raises. There's just more muscle mass there, more fatigue. And obviously, the leg extension and the quads that are involved are going to impact other compound movements to a greater degree. Okay, so if you could try to turn on a squat in a couple of days after doing 100 reps of leg extension, you're going to notice it. Where if you do a whole bunch of lateral raises, you're probably not going to notice as much, even if you do some bench pressing, just because you're using a different part of the deltoid. You're moving the anterior delt. Now, if you did 100 front raises, then you would feel it in the bench press. So again, there's some caveats here, but what I'm saying is if these smaller muscle groups, especially in the quads are not a smaller muscle group, these smaller muscle groups that fall into the single joint kind of category, like a biceps, like a triceps with the parameters I just put forth, lateral raises, post delt, even upper trap fibers, if they're balanced with the lower trap fibers, right? These are regions that can take a little bit more of pulverization, okay? And that, what I mean by pulverization, you can go to failure with higher volumes. So you could do 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 sets, up to quite a few sets of these particular body regions per the week. I'm not saying within one session. I'm just saying over the course of a week. There's a lot more room to grow there. I'm going to go back to the upper traps just for a second as well. Again, I want to make sure I keep qualifying what I'm saying is that even though, doing a lateral or a simple, scapular elevation, so your typical bro trap raise, if you overdo that though, and especially don't balance it out with some some lower trapezius work or trapezius fiber work, you're going to run the risk of creating problems with shoulders if you're not doing it right? If you're pushing the shoulders forward, you could run into problems with subacromial shoulder impingement. So again, don't take what I'm saying and like I'm just going to blast every single single joint, simple exercise, small muscle group into oblivion. What I am saying though, there is a possibility that you can scale outside of what we traditionally recommend in terms of weight training volume and whether or not going to failure with some of these smaller muscle groups. Another great one is the calves, right? Calves tend to grow slower anyway for most people. Again, there's a lot of genetics going on here, of course. But you can pulverize calf musculature, and a lot of it has to do too with the lever systems associated with it, but you can really hit calves hard with high volumes, same kind of thing. Okay, even though the gastroc covers 2 joints, it's still more of a single joint action, and the muscles that are involved, especially the soleus, if you do need like bent knee type of work, can take a lot of abuse. Okay, because when you walk and run, it does. Now, don't do that before you go out for a run the next day, but the point is you could scale up the volume there. All right, so I'm just giving you some examples. If you want to look at your program and say, all right, I really want to bring this muscle group up. Is this a candidate for, you can go through a simple checklist. Is this a single joint exercise or movement? Yes. Okay. Is this a large muscle mass like the quads? No, it's a smaller muscle mass. It's a lot. Again, I'm going to keep picking on the lateral delts. It's the lateral delts. Okay. This could be a candidate then for higher volume to failure more frequently. Okay. If you did, 10 sets of lateral raises in a session, you could go to failure almost every single one of those sets. Almost every single one of them. Okay. So, I say almost, why not all the way? Because I don't know who you are or what you've been doing. But if you're up to 10 sets and you go into a failure, each set, you could probably get away with that. Now, again, do you want to do that on Friday then, every set? Maybe not, because you still are listening to your shoulders and they can get cranky if you put a lot of stress on them. Now, that leads into my next thing though, is if you're going to do these higher volumes, rotate exercises. So like with, like say a barbell squat or an RDL or something like that, those are pretty standard exercises, those compound movements. You can change grip widths or maybe stance somewhat, right? I'm just thinking about the squat. Certainly with the RDL you could, but they'll probably stay pretty rock solid, like in terms of this is the way I do this exercise all the time. All right, now there's progressions in them, right? You go to a front squat to a back squat or an RDL to, a conventional or semi-sumo deadlift or whatever you're going to move to. But in terms of the exercise, you're probably not going to swap out conventional for semi-sumo within the same session, okay? What you might do, though, with these higher volumes, with these single joint exercises and smaller muscle group exercises, again, I'm going to pick on the lateral raises. You could do 5, if you can do 10 sets, do 5 of one exercise, 5 of the other, okay? Reason number one is, in terms of engaging with the program, it's going to be more fun. You're going to be more engaged with it to do it. 2, if you understand the exercises, the difference between the exercises, you can plan effectively and accordingly. So if you do a leaned lateral raise, you're going to get more incorporation of the upper trap fibers than you would with a traditional standing lateral raise, okay? So you might say, okay, I'm going to do a traditional standing lateral raise, and then I'm going to do one with a lean lateral raise, targeting a little bit more of the upper trap and eliminating a little bit more of the supraspinatus when I do the leaned, okay? And that deltoid is going to get hit a different way, all right? Good bro talk, okay? You might say, hey, I'm going to do some higher rep stuff and I'm going to take a little stress off my shoulder. So I'll do conventional lateral raises and then I'll do seated bent elbow, so bent arm lateral raises. So you hold more weight when you do that, but the lever is going to be a little shorter, there's a little bit less stress on the shoulder itself. Okay? You could do a sideline incline raise. So you're really staying low, you can get more supraspinatus and you're not going to get much upper trap fiber. But that could be a good pairing with a lean lateral. And so you run the spectrum, or a butterfly lateral raise where you're going all the way over the top. Okay, or what I call the eagle raise, because I just made it up, is 3/4 raise and down. Okay, so those are good overlays. Instead of, now you could do something like standing lateral raises and then seated, but it's really, you're taking your legs out of it and the seat is a little bit harder, but it doesn't change the arm angle very much, is what I'm getting at. Even going from a cable pulley to a dumbbell is going to be different. Okay, even moving your hand back to the back of the dumbbell, and then one in the center of the dumbbell can be a little bit different of a feel in terms of muscle activation. I'm not saying that's going to improve your by changing your hand. That's going to change everything and improve your lateral growth by 5%. No, what I am saying though is it will hit the muscle differently, and if anything, it keeps you engaged with the program. I've said this many times, is that I think we underestimate the motivation factor when it comes to training, especially for those of you who train a long time. Okay, it's good to create new challenges and try new things. I'm more of a routine rat, so I can do the same thing over and over again. But many times, if I'm really trying to push, though, I don't want to do, especially if we're doing like heavy strength work, I don't want to do the same thing over and over again. Okay, I want to do something that's strength related or even volume related, but I want it to be, I'm going to use the word entertaining, but it is in a sense of keeping me engaged with the program. Now, last little qualification here. If you're a newbie, okay, don't worry about any of this. Just build your volume over time. Don't try to I'm going to just blast my laterals right out of the gate. Don't do that. Okay, you can follow. Everything is all the tide is. What's the saying? Rising tide raises all ships. Right. Just keep. Right. Everything's the same. 3 sets, 4 sets of this. Right. What I'm talking to here is people who have been training a long time, and it's like, man, I really like seeing my delts grow a little bit more. Okay, I really need to build my upper back up a little bit more for whatever reason. My post delts are lagging behind my anterior delts from my shoulder, or maybe I'm an athlete, right? These are areas that need to come up, or whatever. Okay, most of it's probably going to fall in the physique kind of area. But for those of you who've been training a while, now you can look at your program though. I'm going to go ahead and I'm not going to let everything run out, right? So I'm trying to get, I'm not going to run my squats out to 10 sets. Okay, I'm not going to do barbell front and back squats in the same session, but I am going to let my lateral raises run out to 10 sets. Okay, now I'm not going to go from 5 to 10, but maybe I'll do 6 next week, and then right the next week I might try 7 and see if that right, and then I'll have my deload and whatever. But right, you can let those run out. Okay, you could have more reps per set, of course, too. The whole point is though the volume can go a little bit further than you might keep within the box typically for those particular exercises. I'm not just going to stick with 4 sets of 10 because it's not going to get it done anymore. I need to go further, and those type of exercises you can do that without paying the price. Okay. Again, to finish with this, I mentioned before, if you do a bunch of anterior, you know, if you're doing front raises, again, you got to use your brain here and think, well, if I'm already doing a lot of pressing, could that create a shoulder imbalance? And will that exhaust my anterior delts from my bench work tomorrow? When, you know, the whole idea of a compound movement is that it does incorporate more muscle mass and more neural drive, and it is more fatiguing. And that's why compound movements are fantastic. Okay, so you don't want to have what I'm talking about here, this increase in volume in these single joint exercises negatively affect the compound movements. So, you know, if they think you are, or if you think they are, make sure you position them away from, you know, maybe they're your accessory. You do your front if you thought that was important, do your front raises after you bench, right? And then so you have another 48, 72 hours before you do any sort of horizontal pressing. Maybe you're doing some vertical pressing. You're gonna have to decide if you want to sacrifice that a little bit for this extra work. Okay, where the lateral raises you probably can work in for the most part without affecting too many other exercises. I think I said that earlier. I'm sorry, I'm talking in circles, but I'm just careful with volume. I don't want to just make these big statements of volume yourself to death and everybody's out there cranking away and getting injured. And no, I'm saying you can volume more than you think for certain situations, certain people, certain exercises, certain muscle groups. Lots of qualifications, but for those of you in that position, go for it. I mean, go for it. Push a little bit. Just always being, you know, savvy of any joint issues or joint pain. That's all I got for today. I hope you guys are having a great day and other cliche type of things I can say to finish this. I'll see you in the next video.